feel free to share the link and invite people that you know would benefit. I'm looking forward to the end of the session. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ma. So yeah, as I said earlier, we already have with us Professor Opeyemi Ekundayo. She is an expert in qualitative research. She is one of the people who mentors me in this area. And of course, she is a lecturer. She's an associate professor in the Department of Psychology, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. And she's someone that you will be happy to listen to. Our sessions are always very interactive, and she drags you into her own world to think the way she does. So, and I think if we listen to something we would all enjoy. So, without wasting our time and without any further ado, Prof. Ma, you can unmute and start.
Good morning, Mr. Ogunye. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you very much for having me on board. Professor Ekundayo, I appreciate you too, ma. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I apologize. I won't be able to share my video because my laptop is misbehaving at the moment, so the video is not clear. But I hope that picture that you have, the slide will help you keep you focused. Let me see if I can quickly just show myself. So this is me. This is Opeyemi Ekundayo. But so today we'll be looking at hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. We'll be discussing qualitative research, and there are some. I'm sure that when we were taught qualitative data collection, we were told of the different ways by which we can gather data, interview. Just for recap, we have interviews, we have observation. You can have observation checklists, and we have diverse forms of interview. We have the KII, the IDD, then the focus group discussions. Now that we have done all of those, and we are back from the field, we've done a fantastic outing. We've had a fantastic outing, and we have our data. What do we do? What is next? So we have what we call data documentation and management. Please note that in qualitative research analysis, what we are doing basically is managing our data. Unlike the quantitative, where you have numbers and then you can manipulate your you can manipulate your numbers, you are coding, you are cleaning, you are adding summation, you are summing some of your items together. But in quality, what we do is we manage data. What I mean by that is we have vast documents. We have these typed documents. It's not numbers, it's in text. And then most of your text that you have, unfortunately, we don't have what we can use to click the button and then you get equations or summations or models. So what we do is we organize data, and is the rigorous and systematic way that you put in that will show the beauty of your data. For instance, you have a transcribed file, and then you've transcribed your quality and your view, and then you have 5 pages or 20 pages of data. Beautiful data. The woman spoke so well. She gave you all her experiences. Beautiful stories. What do you do with this story? How do you manage this story to have to make sense of the data? So what we do is we organize our data, we document our data. So what we have is raw data from the field notes. We have recordings, and from the recordings, either audio or video, or sometimes we have photos, we have videos that we want to analyze. So we have, and then most times we have transcripts. That is the audio recordings that you have that you have written out, that you have typed out on your computer. So the consistency in managing your data is what brings about a good qualitative output. So but we have consent forms, if we have assent forms, if you are done with adolescents or younger children. Then we have audio files, we have handwritten notes. For instance, your note taker, aside the fact that you have the audio, your note taker is not going to be talking, is rarely going to be talking. Then I'm saying there's no rule that says he shouldn't talk, but it's not going to be part of the data, the interview, but he's taking notes of verbal cues, non-verbal cues. He's taking notes of the environment. Probably, okay, it's a hot environment. The notes of interruption and how those interruptions could affect the data collection process. So all of these are important. Then you have your transcribed, your transcript. Sometimes your sitting chart is important. How did you sit, especially if you had done a focus group discussion? What was the sitting arrangement like? If you had sat in a circular form or in a rectangular form, or you are sat like it was a classroom, that could have some impacts on your data. So we are interested in managing all of this. And one thing that sometimes we miss out in qualitative data is the debriefing. And what do we call debriefing? Is the time when we are done with for instance, you have 5 days to be on the field, and every day when you come back from the field, you sit down with each other. If you are 2, if you are 3, if it's a group of interviewers, you are supposed to come back daily to tell each other, okay, these were the challenges I faced on the field. These were the okay, there was a particular question that we had problems. Maybe the questions were not understood by, or all of you noticed that the questions were not understood by your participants. How do you change those questions to reflect what you actually meant? I say sometimes, most times, it's more difficult to ask questions in Yoruba if you have not read your interview guide well before, because you have Igba is calabash, Igba is garden egg, Igba is 200. So it's the same wordings but different intonation and has different meanings. So it's at the debriefing time that you bring about, you discuss issues that you noticed on the field. And then sometimes it's important to take care of how to archive our information. So these are the things that we need to do immediately after we are back on the field. Take notes that you have all of these or some of these that you need for your analysis. Now, how do we file our data? It's important to have, especially if you are going for a national study, it's important to have a similar way of saving up your data. And note that is not a fixed, there is no fixed style, but you must do a style that all the transcribers and all the coders would agree on. For instance, if you have done a multinational survey, a multinational data collection, and then you have Nigeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, Zambia. It's important to have Nigeria as one of the ways to save. One of the it's a key component of your labeling of your file. So, for instance, you can have Nigeria. Of course, in-depth interview underscore, you are sure that your file will scream and say, please, this labeling is quite long. So you could have some coding. You could say Nigeria, then you have NG. If it's Kenya, you can have KN or KY. Then for the states, you can have, if it's Kaduna, for instance, here we have Kaduna, then you can do KG. Your in-depth interview can be high. Some will say KDI, some will say KI. Your K in-depth interview will be KI. So, and if it's focus group discussion, it can be FGD. And if for instance you've asked questions from your service providers, adolescents, their parents, you know that the labeling for adolescents across the data will be the same. For instance, maybe it's going to be age, if it's service providers, in your final reporting. Why it's important to take note of this? I have about similar labels on your codes, on your quotations. So this is important. Now we go to transcription. We've done this data collection, beautiful. You had a good time with the old woman that you went to interview, or the elderly person, or you had very engaging discussion with these adolescents who understand sexual issues well, and who understands health, and who is conscious of teenage pregnancy and blah blah blah. And it's a bit, you have 20 page, you have this long file, maybe 40 minutes interview, 1 hour interview, and then we want to do transcription. Transcription is the conversion of these speeches, for instance, what I'm saying now, into text. So you want to type out, or of course nowadays you can do audio coding, but what we are mostly used to is a verbal word for word coding. So you want to transcribe all that the person has said into text. How do we do this? We have different forms of transcription. We have the verbatim. Verbatim is you transcribe everything. You transcribe the homes, the pauses, the interruptions, the hesitations when you ask questions. So you, for instance, you're saying grammar wise, in parentheses you have hesitation or pauses. So you want to do that throughout your transcribing. And then we have the other one, which is the intelligent verbatim. For this one, usually the verbatim is not readable, it's not very interesting to read through. It can be annoying, when you are reading as a coder. But you want to do, sometimes we would prefer to do the intelligent verbatim, where you have all the pauses removed. For instance, if you have someone who has some mannerism, this and then you have that can be annoying to transcribe, to code. But if you have the intelligent verbatim, where you have a more readable text, you've removed all the hems, all the interruptions, all the she cries, she moans, all of those, and then you have a more readable text. That is the intelligent verbatim. And then we have the edited. Edited is the edited version of intelligent verbatims, where you have, for instance, you have repeated words. Like when we talk, most times we repeat words, not most times, so sometimes we repeat words. So in the edited, you will have removed all the, for instance, person says that and that. I'm trying to think of, but you understand, you have same words repeated again and again. You want to edit out those repeated words so that you have only relevant information. And then the last one is a phonetic transcription. And in phonetic transcription, like I explained more earlier when I used the example of Igba, and Igba. In Yoruba, when you have local dialects, and I'm sure of that of Yoruba, because I'm a Yoruba person, we know that this can come to play when you have phonetics. When you have your interview done in local dialects. So if you're not conversant with what it means, or what you are not sure of, even when the person puts intonation in his Yoruba transcribed paper, if you are not sure of what the person is saying, if you are not conversant, you run into, for instance, I say Igba wo ni, meaning when is the time, and then the person that wrote it, or you that you are reading as a coder, says things is Igba wo ni, meaning which calabash is this. It reads same way, but it has different meanings. So in phonetics, it's more engaging, especially when you do the local dialect interview. Moving on from that, how do we study our transcript? You know, for a coder to be able to code and enjoy qualitative. Qualitative is unlike quantity, that you don't necessarily have to be involved in your data. Quality, you have to be involved in. You have to be emotionally, not just emotionally, we have to be engaged. So you have to be swimming in your data, and the only way you can do that is to read and read and read and read. And then the question that I'm sure some of us will be asking is, so how long will I read? Well, you read as long until you understand your data, because if you do not read and read and read and you just start coding, you lose a lot of information, because sometimes you dig deeper than what the person is saying, and you will discuss that in some of the forms of analysis when we get there. So there are some analysis that you will need to read and understand before you can start interpreting. Especially if you are going to understand, dig more into what what are the heart or the forms of coding that we have. What process how do we code? I've been saying coding, coders, coding. Coding is not just sitting down and then, you know, on your Microsoft Word, you could just sit down with your text and type search, and then you say, everywhere I see the word sexually reproductive health, code it together, and then I put search, and it highlights all my sexually reproductive health, and I just pick on it and take to my report and say, I've done analysis. After all, I've done analysis. Well, you will have lost lots of information. So what is the process of coding? It's systematic. It's a lot. It goes, and you will understand that as you go on. It's a lot of steps that you have to follow to be sure that you've done it right. In it, you must maintain consistency. There's a need to maintain consistency. You must be able to promote repeatability, and you know that this is quite similar with what you have in quantitative, where you have reliability and validity. What you've done, even as a qualitative data analyst, if another person takes those transcripts and wants to look into them, you must be able to get almost the same thing if you have followed a systematic process. So your analysis must be consistent, it must be repeatable, and must be believable, and then it must be transparent. There must be ability to it must be transparent. The process must be a process where somebody else can do about or exactly the same thing if the data is given to them. Now, so how do we code? What we do in coding is we reduce data. We reduce data from the bulk of 20 pages. Imagine you have 20 pages in 30 places, and then you want to have a short report of 15 pages. Then so obviously you have to reduce this data into something that is usable, and that will speak to the 20 pages, but not losing out any information, but giving relevant information that is needed by your the organization that will engage you by your research process. So what we do in coding is we reduce data, but in the reduction of data, we follow this process of systematic consistency and the likes. Now we have forms of code. The two ways by which we code is the inductive and the deductive. And then you have to speak to you. When you are going to the field, you have your objectives, but you don't have your teams formed yet. You don't have your for instance, you want to do sexually reproductive. Sorry, I'm using sex. That's my area, so bear with me, please. For instance, you want to do a Google festival, and I don't know what you can do in a Google festival, but just bear with me. You want to do a Google festival, and you just want to go there. You're doing ethnographic study. You don't have you have the main objective, but you don't have a preconceived idea of what you want to do. You don't have what to expect. You just want to understand the whole culture itself. So you go with the inductive coding, in the sense that you allow the data drive you. The data is the one that will drive your coding process. So you are allowing the data to be broad, and then eventually you are bringing out what you need from your data. And this is a pictorial example of inductive. You have all the data together, and then you start to allow the data to speak to teams, and then you have your team. So you see that the data, eventually you have the yellow coded one, the green coded, the brown, the blue, and then we bring them together. Now the other one that we have is the deductive. Deductive is top down. You have your preconceived ideas. You have, for instance, you want to do sexually reproductive health and rights, and then you are going to the field. You are interested in contraceptive use. You are interested in age at first sexual debut. You are interested in parent communication, if in that area, parent-children communication. You are interested in, so you know what you want, and then you allow the data. You bring what you want out of the data. So those are the two ways by which we do. Sorry, I'm rushing. Qualitative is broad, and so bear with me that the rush is a lot. All right, so what are the strategies by which we can, now that we have the inductive and the deductive forms of coding, what are the strategies that we can use to get our data? We have three broad strategies. The first one is description focused. Just like in your quantity, you have descriptive analysis, and then you have univariate, you have bivariate, and you have multivariate. In quali, we have something similar to that. So what we have is descriptive focus or description focused coding strategy. In that, all you want to do is describe. You just want to describe the data. So you want to look at you want to answer the questions like what, where, when, and who. This is where you use this form of coding. Remember, you want to answer just the question that I would describe a particular, and then just allow the data to speak for itself. You don't go deep into interpretation. And usually we use in vivo coding. We just want to code in phrases and then just describe a situation. You don't necessarily want to do other forms of coding. And this is, but for interpretative focused coding, what you do is you want, just with the word, from the word interpretation, you want to dig deeper to understand the setting. You want to understand the experiences. So it goes beyond what, but it goes into what and how. So you want to do what and how, or what or how. So you can do what and how together. If your research question wants to answer what and how, or your research question is interested in what or how, then you do interpretative focused coding, and then it's more engaging. Then the last is presumption focused coding, and in this you are looking for let me say you want to eventually come up with not causations, but you want to say if this happens, then this is likely going to happen. You want to look at, for instance, we have what conclusion can be made. Having done all of this, you want to generalize, you want to find claims to generate from your work. So you want to see what conclusions can be made from this work. It's usually policy driven. You want to ask what may be the reason why adolescents have now, what is the reason why, or what may be the reason for more earlier sexual debuts now? Why is it that now we have children who are 9 who go into the acts of sex? So maybe then you can do presumption focus coding, or you want to conceptualize a process. You want to ask the question, was the dash, for instance, you did an intervention, was the intervention effective, accurate, or adequate? Then you are going to be doing presumption focus coding. Now note that when you are doing presumption, you have to do all of the first phase. So you have to do the description first, you do interpretative, then you do presumption. So it's like, just bear in mind that it's like univariate, bivariate, and multivariate. Now, having said all of this, what are the research designs that we use in qualitative? So we have 5 main designs. We have the phenomenological approach, we have the ethnography, we have narrative approach, we have case study, and we have grounded theory. I'm sure most of us are familiar with grounded theory. But you see that under the phenomenological, sorry, I always find problems pronouncing this phenomenological approach. We have 3 forms. So let's go into how we can understand when you are asked as a qualitative research person, what research design did you use for this study? Most times I've been at exams where students is just blank and is looking and is wondering, really, does qualitative have research designs? Yes, we do. And we have the first one. And the first one, usually the purpose is to examine participants' experiences. So if you are interested in examining experiences, then you are using the phenomenological. And what are the goals of your data analysis? You are trying to develop themes and concepts that represent the participants' experiences. What type of coding strategy would you use? You would use the description and the interpretative, because you want to understand. You are not just describing, but you want to examine experiences. So you are going to use the description and the interpretative focus coding. This is an example. So how do individuals experience the transition to parenthood? We want to understand, you want to know this. You know, it goes beyond what are the experiences of transition to parenthood. You want to understand the how, then you'll be doing phenomenological. And what are the things that you are looking at for? You want to understand the subjective experiences. Remember that most times qualitative is subjective. So you want to understand the subjective process of the process. You want to understand the subjective experiences of individuals in the transition of becoming parents. And then what are the emphasis? For you would want to, in this study, we want to emphasize the essence of the experience. How has the experience changed you as a parent? Becoming a parent is not just you that you're looking at it from outside. You will think, well, it shouldn't be a big deal. But you'll be surprised that it's subjective. Is what we mean by subjective is how I see it as an individual. So, and these are the things you want to understand. If you need more, but you can't finish all of those that humanities are familiar with. We want to understand social group. We are interested in culture. We want to understand a particular group, and then so you are doing ethnographic study. What are the things that you look out for? You want to understand the culture, the belief, the group that you're interested in studying. And what are the forms or the coding strategy that you can use? You're still going to be using description and interpretation focused coding. For example, this is an example of ethnographic study. We want to do how do employers in a tech setup experience navigate, how do employers in a tech setup experience and navigate the organizational culture, collaboration, and work dynamics within their company. You see that this is about a company, it's about a group. So we are interested in group dynamics. So you want to capture their lived experiences, you want to capture their interaction within the group, you want to capture the cultural nuances in that organization. And at the same time, you want to understand the holistic work environment. So you would be doing ethnographic study. You'll be entering into that system. You'll be becoming a part of that culture so that you can understand the culture. The next is a narrative approach. And in narrative approach, you just want to narrate, you want to restate people's narrative, you want to share people's narratives in stories. Usually narrative is, of course, from the word narrative, narration is stories, storytelling. And for instance, you want to look at let's say usually lived experiences comes under this, the lived experiences of adults in Ondo. So you want to and they are willing to tell stories. Theirs is not just, they don't want you to dig into it, but they want you to tell their stories. Then you'll be doing a narrative approach. Most times the only thing that you do is description focused, because you're not digging into you're not helping them understand their experience. They understand it and they are willing to share and they are wanting to tell the world, these are our experiences. They don't want your own interpretation. Then you'll be doing descriptive focus. You just tell the story. An example here that we have is, how do individuals narrate their experiences of coping with stress in the workplace, and what meanings do they attribute to these coping strategies? Obviously, from this question, you know that we are not asking you your own subjective biases. We are not saying help them understand. We want you to help. They want you to them. So all you need to do is capture the nuances of this process, capture their emotions and state them. Then capture their personal perspective and state them without digging deep, without giving your own views, without giving your own biases. So that is narrative approach. And lastly, we look at the grounded theory that most of us are used to, or we claim we use. This wants to explain a process, a behavior, an event, or a phenomenon. And you want to develop statements, models, or theories to explain that event, that behavior, or that phenomenon. And then what do you use? This is not going to be, when you are doing grounded theory, you are not starting from description at all. You are going from interpretation into presumption, focus strategy. Because most times, just from the word grounded theory, you are postulating, in quotes, a theory. You are trying to say that, having looked at all this data, I want to say this is a theory that guides this setting. So you are going to be moving from interpretation focus into presumption focus, and then you can do you can propound a policy brief or a theory that guides that community. An example that we have is investigation of nurse-patient communication. What are the things that you look at? For instance, you want to do this kind of study, so you are going to be looking at verbal cues, non-verbal cues, and it's important to understand the patient empowerment. How does the patient feel empowered enough to communicate well with the nurses that take care of them? And then we want to compare all of this, that we have these three, and then we could develop, we are assuming that then eventually, having done all of the first four, we are going to be coming up with a theory that says that Empathic communication will promote patient's well-being based on what we've done. And this theory is going to help us emphasize that there's a need to reciprocate communication that can build trust and facilitate positive health outcomes. You see that you have gone beyond just understanding, you've gone beyond just investigating, you have moved into theory development. That is what we do in grounded theory. What are the forms of, there are lots of qualitative data management softwares that we have. We have Atlas AI, we have MassQDA. MassQDA does both, does the qualitative and the quantitative together. So if you can lay your hands on MassQDA, you'll be doing both, and it will be good for you. And then we have NVivo, we have Didos, we have QDA Miner, we have Monkey Learn, and we have lots more. But I'm quite familiar with the first four: Atlas AI, MassQDA, NVivo, and Didos. I've not used the last three before, but I'm aware that they exist and we use them. So those are the softwares available to us to use. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't rush us too much. I wanted to give space for questions because I know usually there'll be lots of questions. Thank you for having me. Sorry for the rush.
Thank you very much, Matt. This has been really comprehensive and easy to follow. Thank you. And of course, I'm sure everybody here knows that qualitative analysis is not something we can do in one. We are completely exhausted rather in 1 hour. So I want to say thank you very much, Ma, for doing this, and of course, thank you to everyone who has been here. All right, so I see we have some questions in the chat box, and then I see there's a hand up. So I'm going to enable Madu Ihekoroye to speak. A minute. Okay, so before I do that, let me read one of the questions we have, so that you can, while you're responding to that, we may ask people to ask questions live. So Madu asked, when can I combine both inductive and deductive coding in the same study? So let me just ask one more. Let me add one more question to it so that you can answer the two.
Sorry, I didn't get that question you read.
Oh, it says, when can I combine both inductive and deductive coding in same study? So, and then the other question I want to add to it so that you can answer both together is, thanks for this presentation. Prof, please, I would like to know the difference between qualitative research design approach and strategy. Are these terms used interchangeably? So you may respond to these ones while I work on meeting people. Thank you.
I didn't get it.
He said, is there a difference between qualitative research design?
Sorry, I didn't get the second one to you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. Is there a difference between qualitative research design, approach, and strategy? Or are these terms used interchangeably? So you may respond, ma'am.
And deductive. Yes, sir. I'll say it's easier to focus on one. It's easier to focus on one because to go from, how do you explain that I went from top down and then in the same study I went up, down, up? You have to focus on one. And it's just on, once you understand your data and you understand your research questions, you can be able to know which you want to do rather than mixing them together. So I would suggest you do one. If you are doing inductive, do inductive. Yeah, if you are doing deductive, do deductive. And then the next question is asking that can you combine all these processes that I've explained are processes. They are not. It's not like once you do inductive, then you are not going to be doing descriptive focus. It's like asking if I do in my survey, would I be doing would I be summing my variates, doing univariate, bivariate, multivariate? You are doing all of these are processes that you would do, or that you'll be involved. That, how do I say, that there are steps to getting to your analysis, getting to your report writing, getting to your results. So it's not like once you do you use okay, let me explain this clearly, maybe it will help us. If you start with your research design and then you then trickle it down, for instance, you are doing narrative, obviously you know that the strategy that you'll be coding strategy you'll be doing is descriptive. And then if you are doing descriptive, you'll be doing in vivo coding. You won't be doing, or you do a lot of free codings. You don't need to code and then start to look for meanings in your code. So maybe if you take it from how I explained, from this research design down, you understand it more. So they are a process. Not like if you do one. I hope we got that.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ma. Can you hear us?
Yes, clearly.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you, Ma. So there's a question here also that how can I code participants' emotions? That is one question. The second one is when do we use grounded theory?
Okay, so let's start with the last one. The first one is very interesting. Let's start with the last one. I don't mean the last one too is not interesting, but let's start from the last because it was the last thing I said. Grounded theory is to get a theory. Is if you can't do grounded theory and be just, and you can't claim to use grounded theory and you're just describing. Grounded theory is a theory that you would use. It's a strategy that, or a research design that you would use when you're interested in doing policy briefs. You're interested in doing formulating a theory. For instance, you've done the descriptive, you've done the interpretative research, and then eventually you now want to do the presumption focused. And then from all you've gotten, you are trying to formulate a theory. If you go back on my slide, you see that eventually we were able to conclude that even though we investigated patient-nurse communication, we could easily say from the data or conclude from the data that once there's a good rapport between nurse and patient, they'll be able to build trust, and they'll be able to have a better health output. So you were able to propound a theory, or you're able to postulate an intervention that would work on that community, then you're doing grounded theory. And as I said, most people, when we go for exams, or you are reviewing a paper, and the first query is, where is the theory you propounded from your research? So grounded theory is mostly when you want to propound theory, when you want to give intervention to that particular phenomenon that you researched. Now, to the first question that says, how do I code emotions? Now, for instance, in this class, you've heard me smile, even though you didn't see my face. In my words, you know when I smiled, you know, so you can interpret that I enjoyed this class. If I had a class me all day, even though you can't, the teacher was sad, and then in that you've analyzed my emotions, and that is why when you do focus group discussion, you must have a note taker that looks at people's faces, see notes people who wants to talk always, who are outgoing, so you can easily deduce, and in your report you can let us know that you had somebody who was willing to dominate the class, even though you eventually intervened and let the person know that it was a discussion, not one person discussion, but a group discussion. So you can get emotions that way, and you can interpret emotions that way. It's a lot more, but it's just 1 hour. We can't explain more, but I hope that helps you a bit.
Thank you very much, Ma. Peter Oluwasomi, you may unmute and ask your question.
All right, thank you, Prof, for the wonderful presentation. I want to ask, you were talking about the ethnography. So my question is, if I adopt ethnography and maybe I go on the field, apart from interacting with the environment and the participants, if I choose to maybe interview them or maybe I conduct a survey, now, is that still an ethnography or I'm doing a mixed method research design? That's my question, ma. Thank you.
If I got your question, you're saying that if your intention was supposed to be survey, and then eventually you now looked around and got information from other persons, maybe by interview or by just observation, that are you doing ethnography or you're doing mixed method? Is that the question?
Yes, you're right. That's the question.
You have done mixed method because you've done I'm using quality. You've done quantitative and you are doing qualitative. So it's mixed method. But note that mixed method is not a research design. Because I can't say that and you're not the only one that is guilty. We are all guilty of it. We say, what are you doing? I'm doing mixed method research design. There's nothing called mixed method research design. And what you are doing is you are doing a qualitative that has this type of course you are doing mixed method, but it's not a research design that shouldn't allow you to explain the research design that you did for the quantitative aspect and for the qualitative aspect. So for instance, I've done mixed method, and by quantitative I've done quasi-experimental. For my quali, what research design are you using? Then you can say ethnography. If you are interested in or understanding the group, the social group, you can say ethnography. If you are just interested in narratives, just telling stories, then you are doing narrative approach. If you are interested in understanding the phenomenon, then you are doing the phenomenological approach. So it depends, and you should be able to understand that. But if you just leave it as I've done mixed method, and then when you get to your qualitative, you can't tell us the type of method that you used in your qualitative, and then your quantitative, you can't tell us, then you have not said much. Especially when you're writing paper and you're writing good paper, we will ask you, what have you done? I hope that explains what you want.
Please, let me just take it for a bit. I'm very sorry. For instance, I have one paper that I'm writing now. It's about this park management system. So I went to the field to interact with the members of the drivers, the PMS and the managers. Now, so when I got there, apart from observing what is happening around the garage, I also conducted an interview. I interviewed some of them. Is that still part of the ethnography, or have combined approaches? Thank you, ma.
You've done survey and then you have interviewed.
No, it's just basically observation. I went there to observe. Then after as I was observing, then I was conducting an interview.
Before you did your observation, I got that. Before you did your observation, did you have an observation checklist?
Anyway, I'm not. I didn't have, but all
So
those things I observed, I took note of them.
ordinarily, from your objectives and from your research question, you should have developed, just like you developed interview guide and you developed questionnaire, you should have developed an observation checklist, so that you are not just observing based on emotions, or you are not just observing what you just think is appropriate. You should have had people who are knowledgeable, or you should have gone through what's it called now, research papers that will guide you into what you should look out for. And with that, you will have developed an observation checklist that you would then say, okay, I saw this, that was important. I saw this. Because now what you have as observation notes, how do you know if, what metrics would you evaluate yourself on to say it is properly done, or you've gotten all you needed to get? You understand? You know, when you do interview guide, it guides you and you know, okay, I got all the questions I needed. So the same thing you should have done with observation checklist. It will have guided you to know, okay, all that makes them thugs. For instance, you want to look at thugs. All that makes a thug or an environment a slum environment, or somebody that I met is a thug, all that I should see in a thug, I saw. That is the checklist that will guide you. But if you have just done it on emotions, because you just said, you boys, then you say, it's a dog, then you've not done observation.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. We're already almost on the clock, and I want to still make one more announcement. So I'll read this last question, and then we call it a day. Thanks so much for the enlightenment. Please, in a mixed method study, can the qualitative aspect be one of the 5 designs mentioned, e.g. survey and phenomenology? Or should it just be a survey and a type of qualitative method of data collection, not design?
No, it has to be. If your survey is a design, therefore for qualitative too, you must have a design. So it can be phenomenological, and it can be narrative, and it can be grounded theory if you propounded a theory.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ma. There seems to be a question we missed, and it was that let me look for it now. Okay. That is there a difference between qualitative research design approach and strategy, or can we use those terms interchangeably?
Yeah, I think I've answered that when I was explaining to the person that first asked about research design, that what's the difference between research design approach and strategy, and I said it's like asking what is the difference between in your quali. You're saying, if you say your research design will inform all of the coding and the strategies, so your research design is the baba, then the mama and the children are the coding process and the strategy, and you understand, and the inductive, deductive, blah 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 blah. If we had time, we'll have talked about the forms of coding. We'll have talked about, there are still lots of things to teach in qualitative. This is just like saying qualitative 101.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ma. I'm trying to share my screen, but it looks as if the window I want to use is not available. Okay, good. I'm saying it. Yeah. Sorry, is my
yes, we can see your mail.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible. Your email, and then we are saying something now. Yeah.
It's visible now.
Okay, what are you seeing the YouTube page?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Video processing.
Good. So we have actually uploaded the videos on some of the past videos on our YouTube page, but then we're asked to reprocess them so that all types of audience may be able to access them. So what YouTube is doing with some of these videos is that it's upgrading them to a 4K resolution. So I just wanted to show us this so that we see that it is already our videos will be online. You'll be able to access them today. In the initial format, I think it was restricted, so only a few gadgets will be able to access it. But now, once this processing is done, all types of devices will be able to access all the videos. So that's the first. And then the second thing I wanted to say is we can see the channel name on YouTube is Central Office of Research, OAU. Central Office of Research, OAU. So please, you can, I think one of the things that can happen is we can subscribe to the channel and then turn on your notifications so that immediately these videos are finished uploading, they're already on instant premiering. So you receive your notification immediately and you can access these videos. So we'll be having 6 videos online today. So then we'll try to catch up, but it takes a while. This has been on since night. We've been on this since since 2 a.m. today. So that's why it's taking so long. So it takes so long to upgrade them. I don't know whether it's due to the internet or whatever, but I just wanted us to see that the good news is our videos will be live today. So follow or subscribe to the channel Central Office of Research, OAU, on YouTube, and please put on your notifications so that once these videos come live, you receive the notification and you can access them and watch. So this is that is my first announcement. The second one is that in the chat section, I already posted our social media pages. Please follow us on our social media pages. You see the Twitter link, you see the LinkedIn link, and then on Facebook, it's Central Office of Research, OAU 2. So just look for us on Facebook. You'll be able to access our news. We have other research activities that we carry out, other seminars, other trainings that you all can benefit from. So we're already on the clock, and I think on the hour, and I think this is the time to close. But before I do that, I want to invite the executive director to help us appreciate our professor and then to help close the meeting. Ma, I don't know if you're still here. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ma Burope, our Professor Ekundayo, thank you. That was brilliant. Brilliant. And I'm sure everybody agreed with it. It also was engaging. I am definitely looking forward to the part B of this anytime you're ready. Thank you, every single person on this. Yes, and thanks for joining us. As you do know, we'll be here same time, same day, same link next week. Thank you, Dimeji, for the excellent piece of work. The YouTube is coming on. Hopefully you'll find it useful. Please do click on our links. You would see it. Please, we would like you to be on our link. I am actually asking because at Central Office of Research, we do set targets. And we're not meeting our targets in terms of the number of subscribers to our link. So we're hoping that you will help us jump that number. It's not just because of the numbers. There are brilliant things to help keep engaged with on Central Office of Research, which you will benefit as researchers, people interested in research. Also, I did share a link for those that are interested in manuscript workshop. This is a personal piece of work we do that builds your competency around manuscript writing. We'll be starting the next round. We're about finishing the first round in 2 weeks, and in 3 weeks' time, we'll start in the new round of 12 weeks training. On that note, I hand over to Dimeji, our excellent, wonderful coordinator so far. And once again, Opeyemi, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Seeing you later. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you so much, Professor Ekundayo, for, needless to say more about how brilliant and comprehensive the session was. So I have a final announcement, and it is that next week, Friday, we'll be concluding the session we started last week on quantitative analysis. So please, if you had questions then that you wrote down we could not respond to, please bring them on Friday. That's next Friday. We'll be able to attend to them and close that chapter. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for keeping it a date. Sorry, we are 3 minutes beyond the time, but thank you. We know all the seconds are worth it. See you next week, Friday. Share the links, follow us on social media pages, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and God bless you.